Yes, okay, good. Okay, and welcome everyone. This is Vocabulary blah. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna start that over if that's okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to Vocabulary Strategies for Young Citizens with Susan McDonald. Susan has been a speech pathologist for 18 years and also has completed her K-12 ESL certification in 2006. She comes to us from Norwalk, California, where she works as a department chair and faculty for the Speech Language Pathology Assistant Program at Cerritos College. So she has some great information to share with us today about using vocabulary strategies in the classroom. So during the session, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box on the right-hand side, and we will get to those as soon as there is a break or some time. I'll make sure that Susan is aware of any comments that come up. So, Susan, we would love to hear about your session.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. I'm really happy to be here today to speak with you about vocabulary strategies for our young students. This webinar was created for kindergarten to third grade teachers with a focus on incorporating vocabulary routines into content areas such as social studies. So you know a little bit about my background, and you can tell I'm pretty passionate about language, and one of the things I love to do is support teachers to teach language in their classrooms and giving them lots of ideas and supports in that. So let's get started. There we go. Anytime we want to implement or change something in our classroom, it's important to reflect on why we want to make this change. So I'm going to make the assumption that because you are listening to this webinar, that you want to beef up or change something about your vocabulary instruction. And I'd like to take inventory on what you're currently doing in your classrooms. So we're going to do this through a quick visualization exercise, if you'll indulge me a little bit. I'd like you to close your eyes. And I want you to picture your students in your classroom. I want you to imagine that you just finished a mini lesson on a social studies topic, something like community or government. And I want you to picture in your mind the activities that you're asking your students to do that give them practice with those words that they just learned in that mini lesson. And I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to reflect on the answers to those questions as your eyes are closed during this visualization. So just thinking in your mind's eye about this. So the first question is, are the students engaged in hands-on activities using the words that you taught in your mini lesson? Are they writing the words? Are they reading stories or articles that include those words? Are they watching videos or listening to stories that contain that vocabulary? So when you're done thinking about that, please open your eyes. And thank you for participating in a visualization exercise. If you could add a comment about any activities that you actually use in your classroom for vocabulary instruction, that would be really great for us to note, and we can use that for some discussion as well. So my intention for today's webinar is to help you think of fun and engaging activities that are going to help your students connect and learn vocabulary. These strategies are designed to not just to focus on learning, excuse me, I'm going to restate that. These strategies are actually focused on just learning the words themselves, not necessarily the writing or spelling that goes along with those words, okay? So if we focused on just teaching the meaning and not asking the students to read and write the words at the same time, it's going to help them better attend to the actual meaning of the words, and we can address reading and writing later, once we know that they understand the meanings of the words. Basically, we want to reduce the cognitive and language load that students are juggling during the school day when they're learning new things, especially with our English language learners and at-risk students who statistically have been shown to bring a lower vocabulary than their higher socioeconomic peers do. So a student's not going to learn if they don't have a way to understand what the words mean. And so if you look at the slide, I have 3 gears here. And I purposely created language as the largest gear because language is really the bridge that connects thinking with the content or curriculum that you're teaching in the classroom. And students make sense of their language, students make sense of their learning through language. So we really have to make sure that they're comprehending the language we expect them to use when they're thinking and talking about the concepts we're trying to teach. So they're all interrelated, and it's really important for that vocabulary to, for them to connect to the words that we're teaching them. Focused vocabulary teaching requires the teacher to select the appropriate types of words that a student needs to learn. So for this webinar, we're going to focus on teaching Tier 2 words, which are specific to a particular topic. For example, with the theme of government, some Tier 2 words would be election, leader, vote. And I'd like to introduce 3 strategies for helping students learn Tier 2 words through the use of vocabulary routines. So as you know, young learners benefit from consistency and predictability. And so using routines will not only foster a way for them to learn and practice the vocabulary on a regular basis, but it's also going to set them up as strong learners who have different ways that they can learn new words. So it'll make them become stronger students as well. Let's see, move on to the next slide here. So in this slide, you can see the word community. And I want you to think what comes to your mind when you see this word. So, and I'd like you to picture what a community looks like, which might be harder than, some other words because no community is really the same. And you might picture a town center of people walking around, kind of like those Richard Scarry books, or you might picture the downtown of the city where you live. But for a new language learner or an at-risk student, it might be harder for them to picture what community means if they haven't connected that word to a particular context. Because community is a complex idea and it's made up of several things. So for the first strategy, I'm suggesting that you come up with a method for the student to create their own image of the word that reflects the depth and complexity of the term that you're asking them to use. And one of the ways teachers can do this is through collages. Creating a collage for abstract vocabulary words can be really fun, and it helps the students connect to the material. And it also gives the teachers insight into the students' comprehension of the words. So for this routine, I would recommend that the teacher select words that a certain student is having difficulty with, or you can give this assignment to the class as a whole if they need to demonstrate their learning of those terms. It just depends on how you want to use it. And you can offer this as one of the vocabulary routines that a student can choose once you've done a mini lesson or a longer lesson around a particular topic. The great things about collages is that it taps into the right brain, which is our visualization and imagery center, and it helps students whose language skills are weak or emergent. It helps them access a different part of the brain that might be a little stronger. And it doesn't rely on language to learn more language. So here in the example in the slide, you can see a mix of writing and pictures and drawings that express the meaning of community. And it gives it a lot more depth and richness than just writing it in a sentence. So it really helps the students connect to that. The other great thing about collages is that they're wonderful ways to prompt verbal expression about using that vocabulary word. So if a student has created a collage, they should be able to talk about it and describe why they chose the pictures they did and how that relates to the meaning of community. So that's going to provide an opportunity for them to demonstrate comprehension, and teachers can do a check-in and see if they understand what the word truly means. And it's also giving them an opportunity to use the word in sentences and using it in more complex terms. So also the great thing is now they've got a visual connection with this, and you can also use this as a visual support when they're trying to remember, what does community mean? There's all those different attributes to it. So if anyone's currently using visuals to help your students practice with vocabulary, please feel free to comment in the chat section on how you do this in your classroom. The next routine I want to share with you is probably something you've seen before, so it's an oldie but a goodie, talking about word webs. Word webs are not new, but they're a powerful tool because they're a visual way of mapping out the meaning of a word. So take again the example of the word community, which may have several items a teacher wants the child to know or associate with that word. A word web is something the child can use along with the teacher, or they can create their own, and the teacher can use this as a comprehension check and a way to help correct them and come up with a more refined, accurate meaning of the word. So if students cannot yet write the words associated with the meaning, or it takes up too much time for them to write, they can paste pictures or draw pictures of what makes up that word. Again, using that visual, the right brain to help with that. Now, Teachers Pay Teachers has lots of word webs, but you can easily create your own. And I like the EduPlace graphic organizers for easy downloads, which you can find at www.eduplace.com. And I'm going to show you an example here. So this one is a great word web that actually has sentence starters. And you can see that in the bubbles it says, it has, it also has, I love to, I can, and in the center, my community is. So this is fantastic for English language learners, students with language disabilities, and at-risk learners. I've also included the link where I found the this particular graphic organizer from the website. And so again, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's so many wonderful materials out there already. It's just a matter of finding things and modifying for what you need and for what your students need. One thing I would suggest for students who initially first need to just learn the meanings of the words is to make this more of a visual activity in which they substitute photos or drawings instead of words in the different bubbles, okay? So we need to make sure we're not overloading the language demands of a particular task. Otherwise, they're not going to be focused on learning the meaning. They're going to be more concerned with how do they spell the words and the physical act of writing, which can be challenging for some. And of course, while we do want them to learn how to spell and write the words, we need to focus also on learning and connecting those vocabulary words with meaning. So if you actually use graphic organizers or any kind of word webs to help promote vocabulary in your classroom, I would love to hear how you do this. And please post that in the chat. This last strategy that I'd like to recommend also takes advantage of a non-linguistic part of the brain. So this is designed for movement and also activates the right side of the brain in addition to the kinesthetic aspects of things. So charades. Charades or other dramatic reenactment types of activities can be used to help children really learn what something means. If they have to design an actual sequence of movements and represent the word in movement, that really is going to take them to a deeper sense of what this word means. And also, if they're doing it with their peers, they're going to be more engaged and more focused, and they're going to be more likely to be motivated to learn the words as well, rather than if they were writing the word on a piece of paper 5 times or something wrote like that, which really just teaches spelling, not comprehension. So you know, the great thing about this is teachers can organize this to be as complex or as simple as they want. And they can pair students with a stronger grasp of language with those who need more support. And they can really lend itself well to acting out more abstract kinds of concepts like election, government, things like that. And as we know with research, readers' theater and other types of drama have been shown to be successful in helping kids learn vocabulary and the deeper meanings of it. It also taps into that social and kinesthetic part of the brain that helps students connect to the words at a more social emotional level. And so you can see the link to where I found that before. There's some just wonderful resources out there online. So I hope you can, you know, do some investigation, but use this as kind of a baseline. So as you can see, the vocabulary today's activities that I discussed focused on activating different parts of the brain, like the visual centers and movement to represent the actual words. This, using the visualization and movement, provides natural scaffolding and supports for students so that they can connect to the words through a variety of sensory and emotional experiences. And we know through more current research that, you know, social emotional connection to things is how students really do learn. The other key idea I want you to take away from this is that it's really important to focus on the learning of the words and not bombard students with writing and spelling in addition to learning the meaning of the words, because it can be really challenging for them to do all three things at once, and they need to kind of have those broken up a little bit until they have a strong vocabulary base. And lastly, with selection of the vocabulary words, I'd like you to think about which tier 2 words are going to be will lend themselves most to this kind of activities, and really I would say quality over quantity in terms of the vocabulary words you're trying to teach, because there's some that they'll pick up more easily than others, and so you may want to focus on the ones that are going to take a lot more time to learn. And then again, lastly, we've got group and paired activities here that might be helpful in your, getting your students to connect with each other, and that's going to really provide for some peer modeling and engage a variety of different learning styles and different types of learners, whether they're extroverted or introverted learners. There's ways that they can participate in this kinds of things, really easily. And they also allow for flexibility and adaptability, so each teacher can use them as they decide and how they're going to fit into their individual classes. Okay, so I'd like to just wrap up at this point, and I think wanted to just say that it was great to just share these ideas with you. If you if you have any questions about these, or you want to talk about these topics in more depth, you have my contact information on the website, and it's susanmickslp@gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Susan. Those are some great ideas. I wrote several of them down to use in my classroom. I love the collage idea and the acting out. That is so right in my pre-KK. Their favorite things to do, movement, because they cannot sit for so long. So exactly. I love these ideas.
That's great.
They're wonderful, especially building vocabulary can be so challenging in certain situations. To make it real for the students is going to be so beneficial to them, especially like you said in history, government, and different things. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. We have recorded this session, so if you want to view it later, it will be recorded for you. And Susan, that was fabulous once again. And I hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you for staying with us today. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.